Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel, MD, General Physician. All my video lectures are mainly for educative purpose. In continuity with the previous series in CNS examination, or we call neurological examination, we have done with cranial nerves. So part of cranial nerves, this will be a lecture on third, fourth and sixth cranial nerve. So 3, 4 and 6 cranial nerve we call oculomotor, trochlea and abduction. So we'll be discussing on that particular part. Mainly these are concerned with extraocular movements. So we'll be dealing with that particular. So we'll be discussing under the heading anatomy, function, method of testing, and then interpretation of the findings, what you come across, and how you localize the lesion of these three cranial nerves. Third cranial nerve oculomotor, fourth cranial nerve trochlea, and sixth cranial nerve abduction. All they come out from what we call as brainstem. 3 and 4 comes out from upper part of brainstem, we call that as a midbrain, and 6 cranial nerve will come out from the lower part of the pons, that is abduction nerve. So this will be the 3 cranial nerves we call oculomotor, trochlea and abduction. Trochlear will be coming out from the posterior side of the midbrain, and then it will run anteriorly. We'll be dealing in detail regarding that particular portion. So we'll be discussing on these 3 cranial nerves. And after coming out, they'll pass through the superior orbital fissure, and then they will supply the different muscles. So they'll be supplying, trochlea will be supplying extraocular muscle plus oculomotor nerve will be supplying along with extraocular muscle. It will be supplying also levator palpebrae superioris. We'll be discussing all those in little more detail, as well as the constrictor pupillae of iris, that will be showing you. And as far as the relation in a cavernous sinus is concerned, 3, 4 and 6 will be running in a cavernous sinus, and there it will be also related to fifth cranial nerve. Above the pituitary fossa you will have optic chiasma, and on the two side of the pituitary fossa you will have a cavernous sinus, and on the lateral side you will have a temporal lobes. You will have 3, 4, 5 ophthalmic and maxillary division will be running in this cavernous sinus, and also the sixth cranial nerve will be one of the part in cavernous sinus. Frontal lobe will be in the top part of above the cavernous sinus. So in this single diagram we'll be showing you regarding the supply by oculomotor, trochlear and abduction. To make it very simple, after arising from the brainstem, the abduction nerve will pass through the cavernous sinus, superior orbital fissure, and it will supply only one muscle, that is lateral rectus. While trochlear nerve, after coming out from posterior side of the midbrain, will run anteriorly. Ideally it will cross to the opposite side, run anteriorly, and it will supply. It will pass through cavernous sinus, it will pass through superior orbital fissure, and then it will supply only one muscle, that is superior oblique. While oculomotor nerve, which arises from the upper part of the pons, It will pass through cavernous sinus, pass through superior orbital fissure, and then it will supply four extraocular muscle, that is superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, and inferior oblique. Plus, it will also supply levator palpebrae superioris. So that will be four extraocular muscle and one muscle which uplifts the upper eyelid. So this will be oculomotor nerve, as well as in oculomotor nerve, Edinburgh-Westphal nucleus, which will supply parasympathetic fiber via ciliary ganglia to two muscles, that is ciliary muscle and sphincter pupillae, which will be responsible for accommodation response and pupillary reflex, that is pupillary constriction. While sympathetic nerve supply, which is coming from the cervical part, will pass along the carotid sheath along with the common carotid, internal carotid artery, and that it will enter inside, and then it will supply levator palpebrae superioris, part of the levator palpebrae superioris we call as a Muller muscle, and then it will be also supplying this sympathetic fiber will be also supplying half of the face skin part, and that will be responsible in what we call as a Horner syndrome, that we have already discussed separately. Now here we are going to discuss regarding these three cranial nerve: oculomotor nerve, trochlear nerve, and abduction. So oculomotor nerve will be supplying levator palpebrae superioris, and it is a bilateral innervation. So from third cranial nerve, there will be the fiber which will be going to both the sides. Superior rectus, medial rectus, inferior rectus, and inferior oblique. These are the four extraocular muscle which will be supplied by oculomotor nerve. Plus, it will be also supplying the fiber to iris, which we call as a circular fibers or we call constrictor fibers, and these are parasympathetic. And also it will be supplying ciliary muscle, which will be responsible for accommodation response and adjusting the thickness or we call lens. It will be helping in adjusting the focal length of the lens. Fourth cranial nerve arises from lower part of the midbrain. It will come out from the posterior side of the midbrain. It will cross to the opposite side, then runs anteriorly, and then it will supply opposite side superior oblique. So right side trochlea will be supplying opposite side superior oblique. Left side trochlea will be supplying right side superior oblique. Abduction nerve, which will be arising from lower part of the pons, it will come out anteriorly. It will pass through the cavernous sinus, pass through superior orbital fissure, and then it will supply lateral rectus. So in general we use a word SO4 means superior oblique, supplied by fourth cranial nerve. LR, that is lateral rectus, supplied by sixth cranial nerve. So SO4 LR6 and AIR means all other muscle by third cranial nerve, all remaining by third cranial nerve, that is called AIR. So we call SO4 LR6 and all other rectus muscle, that is supplied by means inferior rectus plus all other remaining lateral rectus muscle supplied by third cranial nerve. So that will be consisting of, this will be consisting of superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, and inferior oblique. Inferior oblique. Now you can see in this diagram that Edinburgh-Westphal nucleus via ciliary ganglia, it will be supplying circular fibers of iris as well as ciliary muscle. While this central subnucleus will be innervating both sides levator palpebrae superioris. Levator palpebrae superioris. So it is a levator palpebrae superioris is receiving bilateral innervation. It is receiving fibers from both sides. So it innervates both sides. So this will be innervating both levator palpebrae superioris. While superior rectus, this superior rectus will be innervated by contralateral. So this will be innervating opposite side. So this medial subnucleus will be innervating opposite side superior rectus. So right side will be innervating left side and left side will be innervating right side. While all other, that is medial rectus, inferior rectus and inferior oblique, those three will be innervated by the same side. So again I am repeating, medial rectus, inferior rectus and inferior oblique innervated by the same side. Levator palpebrae superioris is innervated by the nucleus, which is the central nucleus, and that central nucleus is innervating both levator palpebrae superioris, while superior rectus is innervated by opposite side third cranial nerve or nucleus of a third cranial nerve, means contralateral innervation of superior rectus. So this will be the distribution of nerve supply by third cranial nerve, and Edinburgh-Westphal nucleus is a parasympathetic portion and it will be innervating the circular fiber of iris as well as ciliary muscle, which is concerned with the lens thickness via ciliary ganglia. So do remember that, and that will be innervating both sides. This will be Edinburgh-Westphal nucleus will be innervating both sides, right as well as left. So indirectly this is putting together inferior rectus, inferior oblique, medial rectus. This will be innervated by the same side. Edinburgh-Westphal nucleus will be innervating bilateral to ciliary muscle as well as pupillary constrictor fibers, or we call circular fibers, and this is a parasympathetic control. Levator palpebrae superioris is innervated by the central nucleus, which will be bilateral innervation. So bilateral innervation is to levator palpebrae superioris, constrictor pupillae and ciliary muscles, while superior rectus is innervated by opposite side third cranial nerve. That's why we call contralateral innervation. So parasympathetic supply is to the circular fiber as well as ciliary muscle, responsible for lens movements, thickness of lens movement. So these are all the different muscles. We'll be labeling them. This is lateral rectus, B is inferior rectus, C is superior rectus, D is inferior oblique, E is superior oblique, and F is levator palpebrae superioris. So we have got 4 rectus, 2 obliques and 1 levator palpebrae superioris. Totally it makes 6 muscles, 4 recti, 2 obliques, superior, lateral, medial and inferior rectus, 4 muscles, and we have got 2 obliques. So totally 6 extraocular muscles, And one muscle which is concerned with movement of the upper eyelid, we call levator palpebrae superioris. Plus there is one muscle which is innervated by sympathetic, we call as a Mueller muscle. So we have got a superior rectus, superior oblique, medial rectus, lateral rectus, which you can see. This is superior oblique, this is superior rectus, this is lateral, this is medial rectus, and on the inferior side you will have an inferior oblique and inferior rectus. Lateral rectus, superior oblique, and medial rectus. And we have got levator palpebrae superioris. So you can see this is medial, lateral, superior, inferior, superior oblique, inferior oblique. Clear? So oculomotor will supply medial rectus, inferior oblique, and superior rectus. While the superior oblique will be supplied by fourth cranial nerve, that is trochlear, and lateral rectus. This will be lateral rectus, which will be supplied by abduction. So oculomotor nerve is concerned with, as it supplies ciliary muscle, it is concerned with accommodation response. One part of accommodation response, that is, it will be making the lens diameter thickness will be changed so that the light focuses on the retina. It supplies constrictor pupillae. This will be parasympathetic fiber, so it will give rise to constriction of the pupil. Levator palpebrae superioris will help in elevating the upper eyelid. Medial rectus will be concerned with adduction of the eyeball. We'll be using many terms: inward movement, nasal movement, adduction, convergence, etc. While superior oblique is concerned with the upward movement with adduction, because the direction of the superior rectus is such so that it will move the eye medially and upward. Inferior rectus will be downwards and adduction. So you will have three muscles which will be doing adduction, that is medial rectus, superior rectus, and inferior rectus. While inferior oblique will move eye upward and outward, and also it will do rotation. So this will be the action of oculomotor. To show that particular movement, it will do adduction by medial rectus, as well as also it will be done. So medial rectus will be pure adduction. Superior rectus will do adduction as well as little medial movement. We call medial movement, that is adduction along with elevation, and together it will be moving eye in this direction. So elevation plus adduction, so this will be the direction. While inferior rectus will be moving eye downwards, we also use the word depression. This is elevation, this is adduction, or we call medial movement, nasal movement. These are the words which are being utilized, but by and large we utilize the word adduction. While inferior oblique will move eye upward, that is elevation, as well as it will abduct, and there will be rotationary movement, extorsion. While superior rectus will be partly intorsion. This inferior rectus will be partly extorsion. So eyeball will be rotated little outwards. This will be rotated little inwards. This will be rotated outwards. Extorsion. So these are the different movements of eyeball. Inferior rectus, this is inferior oblique. Fore muscle. So lateral rectus, pure abduction. Superior rectus, elevation plus adduction and little amount of intorsion. Inferior rectus, depression, adduction and extorsion. Superior oblique, intorsion, depression and abduction. Inferior oblique, abduction, elevation and extorsion. So this is in general the action together. Trochlear nerve will be purely, it will be downward movement, outward movement and rotation. That is we call intorsion. So this will be the three movement: downwards, outwards and inward. So we call abduction, depression and intorsion. While lateral rectus, pure lateral movement, pure lateral, medial rectus and lateral rectus, pure abductor and adductor. So lateral rectus will be abductor and medial rectus will be pure adduction, pure adduction. So that will be the action. Here that part medial rectus is not mentioned here. Okay. So superior oblique 4, LR6 is lateral rectus, 6 cranial nerve. This is LR6, this is SO4. So this is combined together. You can see that this will be adduction or we call medial, abduction or we call lateral movement, superior movement or we call elevation, depression or we call inferior movements. And when it is internal rotation, we call as an intorsion. When it is an external rotation, we call as extorsion. These are the few words which you should be aware of it and you should remember them. Also lateral movement is called temporal movement. It is also called as outward movement. While medial is called inward or nasal. Superior is also called as upward. While inferior is called downward movement. External rotation, extortion. Internal rotation, intorsion. And when you move downwards, it is also called as an infroduction. And this is called superduction. These are few of the words. Also there is one word called as a X-cyclo version and N-cyclo version. So these are the other words. X means extortion, En, entorsion. So So inferior oblique will be doing elevation, extorsion and abduction. Superior rectus will be doing elevation, adduction and intorsion. Medial rectus will be pure adductor. Lateral rectus will be pure abductor. Superior oblique will be doing downwards, that is depression, outward movements, that is abduction and intorsion. While inferior rectus will be moving eye downwards, adduction plus extorsion. So this is a combined showing you all the action together of all the different muscles. So abduction we also call as outward or lateral, or you can use our temporal movements, while adduction is nasal, inwards, etc. and medial. Upward or elevation, downward or depression, superior movement or inferior movement, and then infroduction, superduction. These are all the movements together. So you can see that this is downward, this is inward, this is central, this is convergence, this is convergence. Abduction, adduction, in you add torsion, intorsion, extorsion, convergence, divergence, X-cyclovergence and N-cyclovergence, or we also add word version. dextroversion, levoversion. Dextro means towards the right side, levoversion is towards the left side. And also along with versions or version, these are the words which will be added. Superior and inferior movement, you can use superduction, introduction, as well as in a version also you can use the word superversion, introversion. And also in torsion, that is rotation, excyclotorsion and torsion. These are all the different. Dextrocyclo and levocyclo. Now method of testing. Explain the person the entire procedure, and you have to test one eye at a time and then both eye together. So you have to explain the person what you are going to do, and person is supposed to follow your order. So when you ask the person to look straight, you just observe for the ptosis. You look for strabismus, that is abnormal axis of the eye. You look for exophthalmos, anophthalmos, as well as you look for the other findings, any other findings like conjunctival redness, sclera, cornea, etc., because they will also affect your testing. Now you ask the person to look straight, and then you ask him to look to the right. Either you can show the finger or you can just order, look to the right, look to the left. And this has to be done in first one eye only. So you will have to close the opposite eye. So if you are testing in a right, person is supposed to close the left eye, and then you look at the movement in first one eye. Then you can repeat the test in opposite eye, and then you can keep both eye open and then do the test. So you ask the person to look to the right, look to the left, look up, look down, and then in a 4 oblique quadrants. During this particular, you look at the eyeball movement. You can look at nystagmus, and you can look at squint, and also look for elevation of eyelid. During this particular movement, if a person has got abnormal movement, or there is a squint, or there is a nystagmus, it is definitely pathological. And also person may complain of diplopia if the person has got squint. Then look for conjugated movement, accommodation response, convergence movement, that is 2 eye open. You look for conjugated movement, accommodation reflex, and convergence. Diplopia is a double vision while looking in a direction of a paralyzed muscle. So when you are examining, when the person is looking straight, you are looking at the lid position, which may be normal, or there may be complete ptosis or partial ptosis, or in some you might have a lid retraction, particularly say classical example exophthalmos. So you also look at exophthalmos, anophthalmos, look for any abnormal axis, and if there is a squint, whether it is nasal or whether it is outward squint or inward squint, or we call adductor or abductor, or upward or downward, depending upon, or it is what type of squint it is. Then if person is having nystagmus, which is a fast component, which is a slow component, you try to look for that. And then when you are asking the person to move the eyeball, you look at the movement of the eyeball. And if there is any diminished movement of the eyeball, we can notice which muscle is being affected, in which direction. So you are asking the person to look up, down, medially, laterally, and in 4 different quadranting angles. You repeat the same test in opposite eye, and then you do the test with both eye open, that is we call conjugated movement, and then we look for the convergence response, or we call as accommodation response, in which we look at the pupil as well as convergence of both the eye. Accommodation response will be convergence plus constriction of pupil together, and we cannot see the change in the lens thickness. Some person can do very odd movement, that is divergent movements, which is extremely difficult. Some person has got that ability. So this will be all the different movements you can look for. So here you can see that you are checking for the movement of an eyeball with closing one eye. You do in all the four different directions, that is upward, downwards, to the right, to the left, etc. And then in the angles. So this is upward. These are on the right side and left side. Here you can see this is upward. Here this is straight. And you look in the angles. These are the four quadrants. Angle. This is medial. This is lateral. Then you ask him to look up, down, then right and up, left and down, right and down, etc. This is right side. Say this is left side. Her will be left side. This will be right side up and down, outwards. This will be left side, upward and downward. This will looking to the left, this will be looking to the right. So you look in all the different elevation, depression, adduction, abduction and obliques, or we call angles. So we have already discussed regarding all the different action, and you will be looking which action is being affected. So medial rectus will be pure adduction, inferior rectus will be downward movement, levator palpebrae superioris will be uplifting of the eyelid, superior rectus will be upward movement, and inferior oblique will be also upward movement. So we call different movements depending upon which muscles you are testing. So this is right lateral rectus and left medial rectus. This will be action together. So when you are asking the person to look to the right, you will be testing. When a person is looking to the right side, you are testing right side lateral rectus and left side medial rectus. And we are asking to person to look to the left, you are testing right side medial rectus and left side lateral rectus. This will be in a conjugated movements. So this will be the different movements together. So these are called yoke muscle. So they work together. So they are called yoke muscle. So yoke muscle will be, if say you are asking the person to look to the, this is to the left side of the person and upward. So it is left side and upward movement. So you should know which muscles are working in a left eye and right eye. In a right eye, it will be the medial rectus along with the muscle which moves eye upward and inward. So that will be inferior oblique, will be moving the eye upward. But medial movement will be done by medial rectus. So that will be the action. So you will have to know which movements you are looking. Say when you are asking the person to look to the left, it will be left side lateral rectus and right side medial rectus. That will be the way the movement will be. So you should know which muscle is acting. And these are called as a yoke muscle. So you are asking a person to look to the different areas. You should know which muscles are working. So medial rectus will be producing medial movement. Inferior oblique will be producing upward movement. Superior oblique will be producing downward movement. Lateral rectus will be producing lateral movement, as well as upward movement will be done by superior rectus and inferior rectus. So superior and inferior rectus will be outwards and upward, while inferior rectus will be abductor and inferior movement, while inferior oblique and superior oblique, you can see that they move medially, as well as inferior oblique will be upward and adductor, and this superior oblique will be downwards and adduction. So that will be the different movements. And you can do cover uncover test. Particularly this will be done to find out the squint. Convergence response you can test while asking the person to look straight and then look at the tip of the nose. When he's looking at the tip of the nose, you will see the convergence of both eye, that is medial movement of both eye, plus pupil will constrict. This is what we call as a convergence response or accommodation response. All movements, if they are present, no cranial nerve palsy. Absence of movement, we will call muscle is involved. You can have all muscle together involved, say in a superior oblique. If that is involved, that will be superior oblique is supplied by trochlea, that is fourth cranial nerve. So fourth cranial nerve is supplying only one muscle. So we'll say that fourth cranial nerve palsy if superior oblique is affected. Superior oblique will move downwards, inwards and in torsion. So if that movement is affected, we'll say that fourth cranial nerve palsy. If say superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus and inferior oblique, all four muscles are gone, plus levator palpebrae superioris, we'll say third cranial nerve palsy. So that will be the way we try to. Lateral rectus affected, only sixth cranial nerve palsy. So depending upon which muscle is involved, we'll label that particular. But because of unopposed action, now you will start getting imbalance in the movement of eyeball, and that will produce deviation of the eyeball to unopposed action. That we call as squint, or we use the word strabismus. And because of strabismus, now the two image given by the two different eyeball does not superimpose. So it will produce diplopia whenever the person is looking for binocular vision. And some of the time, if there is a damage to cerebellum or to the vestibular apparatus, you can have nystagmus. And occasionally in extraocular muscle palsy also, you can have nystagmus. Now pupil affected and upper eyelid affected will be only seen in case of a third cranial palsy. So when eyelid is affected, we get ptosis, and when pupil is affected, that is constrictor piper is affected, there will be unopposed action by dilator pupillae, which is supplied by sympathetic system. We'll get dilation, or we call mydriasis. Single muscle affected will be inside the orbit, or we call inside the intraorbital fissure, orbit area, and that will be very common. Single muscle, if only say only superior rectus is affected or only inferior rectus is affected, it will be a damage where all the nerves are separating out and supplying single muscle. So it will be that area. And when you get multiple cranial nerve palsy, say you got third, fourth and sixth cranial nerve, all three gone, then it will be a damage in the brainstem. And this particular is very common with Guillain-Barré syndrome, poliomyelitis, motor neuron disease, etc. So whenever you get a cranial nerve palsy, lower motor neuron palsy on one side and opposite side hemiplegia, damage has to be in a brainstem. We call contralateral hemiplegia, and that is very peculiar. So in upper limb, when you get in upper part of the midbrain, you get a third cranial nerve with opposite side hemiplegia. Lower part of the midbrain, you got a fourth cranial nerve on the same side, and opposite side you will have hemiplegia. But remember that if you get the right side upper part of the midbrain damage, you will have a third cranial nerve on the same side and opposite side hemiplegia. But as far as the fourth cranial nerve is concerned, from trochlea, the fiber emerges out and it crosses to the opposite side. So it supplies opposite side superior oblique. So you should remember that. And if there is only ptosis and there is unilateral or bilateral, and with oral muscle involvement, do keep it in mind, it can be myasthenia gravis. So as we go through third cranial nerve palsy, fourth cranial nerve palsy and sixth cranial nerve palsy. Say very simple, in sixth cranial nerve palsy, you will have absence of lateral movements. So failure of lateral movements. You can get nystagmus. And here you can see that eyeball has got unopposed action. So this is deviated medially. So this is medial squint, or we call nasal squint, or we call adductor squint. So this side, that means we call as a left side sixth cranial nerve palsy. This will be left side sixth cranial nerve palsy. Clear? And because of this, now person will have a diplopia when he looks to the left, because left side lateral rectus is paralyzed. So when he tries to look on the left side, he will have a double vision. Diplopia will be there. So you will have a diplopia when he looks to the left side. You will have a nasal squint, or we call medial squint, or we call adductor squint, plus the eyeball movement of left eye laterally will be affected. All other movement will be preserved. While when you look in the fourth cranial palsy, you will have a double vision while looking down the staircase. So when he is trying to look down, you can see this is in the center. This is deviated upward, unopposed action. So you will have a squint showing you the eye which is affected. So this side fourth cranial nerve is affected. So it is deviated upward and medially. So asking the patient to turn the eye in and then look down may cause a vertical hypertropia. So when you are asking to look down, the person will have a deviation of the eye which will be upward and medial. That will be peculiar in a fourth cranial palsy. And to balance this, the person will tilt the head to one side. So that is very peculiar in a trochlea. We'll have a further slides. While in a case of a third cranial palsy, you can see ptosis, pupil will be dilated, medial movement will be absent, so eyeball will be rotated laterally, so you will have an abductor squint. Because superior rectus is affected, inferior rectus is affected, so there will be unopposed action of superior oblique and superior oblique and lateral rectus. Superior oblique takes part in moving downwards and outwards. So eyeball will move laterally downwards. Complete ptosis, eyeball will be downwards and outwards. Downwards and outwards. Pupil will be dilated and will not be reacting to light. And also accommodation reflex will be absent because eyeball you cannot move medially. So accommodation response will be also affected. So this will be there. Nystagmus will be seen more commonly in vestibular lesions and cerebellar lesions. In vestibular lesion, nystagmus will be away from the side of the lesion. So if it is on the right side, you will have a slow component, we call. So direction of the nystagmus is defined as the fast component, corrective movement. So slow component will be to the side and fast component will be away from the side. So nystagmus will be away from the side of the lesion. So say if I've got a right side vestibular lesion, I will have a fast component going away, means towards the left side. While in a cerebellum, the fast component will be to the opposite side. So nystagmus to the side of lesion, meaning that you will have a fast component towards the side. So this will be there. And in an internuclear ophthalmoplegia, we have discussed separately. So abducting eye as a greater nystagmus than adducting eye. So this will be in an internuclear ophthalmoplegia, just out of way. So in the third cranial nerve, ptosis, nystagmus, strabismus, diplopia. This will be the common finding in third cranial nerve. While in case of fourth and sixth cranial nerve, you will have a strabismus, you will have a diplopia and absence of eye movement. Absence of movement. So that will be very peculiar. See here in oculomotor nerve, it is downwards and outwards, down and out in oculomotor, plus ptosis, plus dilated pupil. So when you get all this together, it is classical third cranial nerve palsy. Third cranial nerve palsy. So third cranial palsy, double vision, eye turned down and out, ptosis, dilated pupil, not reacting to light. While in sixth cranial palsy, diplopia, when you look to the left, while here diplopia will be there when a person looks medially and upward in third cranial palsy, medially and upward, and eye will be turned inward. This will be very peculiar in a sixth cranial palsy. So this is typical third cranial palsy, ptosis. Ptosis, squint, we call as a lateral, that is outwards and downwards. Diplopia in a nasal field. Mydriasis, that is dilated pupil. And pupillary reflex, direct as well as indirect reflex, will be absent on the side where there is a damage. And there will be absence of movement medially, upward, medially and upward movement will be maximally affected. Downward movement will be because of unopposed action of superior oblique. So that will be there. So third cranial palsy, absence of medial movement, absence of upward movement, absence of downward movement, but that part of the downward movement will be done by superior oblique. Inferior oblique will be doing upward and laterally. So this lateral movement will be done by lateral rectus. Lateral rectus. So, and levator palpebrae, you will get ptosis. So that will be together and pupillary reflex will be affected. So I'm skipping some of this slide. We'll be discussing in a lecture. You can go through, you can have a pause and try to identify which side is affected, what is a type of defect, try to identify. Because there are a lot of, this will be otherwise a very long. You can see here the pupil is dilated, there is a ptosis. So this side, third cranial palsy. So we call that as right side, third cranial palsy. So right side oculomotor. Here again you see that this is right side, ptosis, dilated pupil, little laterally and downwards. Typical position. So you will have squint, you will have diplopia in this field while looking nasally and upward. So you will have diplopia in that field. So we call medial and upward field, you will have diplopia, you will have ptosis, you will have mydriasis and squint of the affected eye downwards and outwards. Ptosis, deviation, movement restriction, pupil will be dilated, accommodation reflex will be absent, and you will have a cross diplopia. Right side, see you can see clearly the pupil is dilated and there is a ptosis, and this is outwards and little downwards. Again you can see here, this is on the left side. Ptosis, dilated pupil, laterally and little downwards. Here you can see this side, ptosis, dilated pupil, downwards and outwards. You can see ptosis, you will not be able to identify where the position is. So we'll have to uplift. So you can see that it is laterally and downwards, and pupil is dilated as compared to this. So this will be combined picture of oculomotor. So in a fourth cranial palsy, absence of movement, squint, which will be fourth cranial nerve, sorry. So fourth cranial nerve is supplying superior oblique. So superior oblique movement will be downwards and medially. So eyeball will be moving upward. Absence of movement, external rotation, movement due to other muscle action. So this movement will be affected due to, while yes, so in a trochlea, because of superior oblique palsy, the eyeball will not be, main movement is downwards and inwards. So because of this particular action, there will be unopposed action by other muscles, and that will move the eyeball upward and inward, upward and inward. So upward and medially, upward and inward, that is medially. diplopia will be there in a downward and outward field. So when you ask the person to look down and out, the person will have a diplopia. Head will be tilted so that the two eyeball become same axis. So person tries to accommodate by doing this movement, and person will find difficulty while going down because he cannot move the eye downward. So he will find difficulty in moving the eye downwards and outwards. That's why the person while going down the staircase he will find difficulty, and also as he cannot move the eyeball downwards, he will not be able to read. And this will be the two common findings which will be coming across. So if the right side fourth cranial nerve nucleus damage, then left side superior oblique palsy will be there, because this is supplying opposite side superior oblique. So you will have, if right side fourth cranial nerve palsy, then same side superior oblique. So if nucleus, fourth cranial nerve nucleus is damaged in midbrain, the fiber which is coming out posteriorly, they cross to the opposite side. So in a brainstem damage, you will have opposite side superior oblique gone. But once the fiber comes out, then it will be supplying. Say if then fiber from left side has already come to the right side. Now if that get damaged, it will be that side palsy. So that will be the important. So if you get a right side fourth cranial nerve palsy, so then it is supplying right side only. So right side cranial nerve palsy, you will have a same side superior oblique. So in a trochlear nerve, it will be supplying a superior oblique. So you can see here, the fiber is arising from here, comes out. So if you get the damage here, it will be same side palsy. But if you get the damage in the brainstem, say on the right side, then you will have opposite side trochlear nerve gone. So because trochlear nerve is crossing to the opposite side. So here you can see very clearly. So if you get a damage here, it will be same side. So this is, say if we take this a brainstem, so this is patient wise, if we consider, this will be left side. So you will have a left side being affected. And if you get the damage in the brainstem, it will be opposite side. So fourth cranial nerve, diplopia, hypertropia and restricted ocular movement. We have already discussed. So superior oblique gone, vertical movement and torsional diplopia will be there. So when you ask the person to look downwards and outwards, because that is the movement of, that will be the movement of superior oblique, and person is not able to do that action. So you will have a diplopia in that field, and person will find a problem while going down the staircase and while reading. That will be very peculiar, and person will rotate the head. See, you can see here, this are the two normal action. This is after paralysis. So person now moves the eyeball in such a way that, he moves the head in such a way that both eyeball axis becomes parallel, and that will be tilting the head. So here you can see that a person, this is normal, right side hyperdeviation of primary position when the left eye fixating that X cyclotorsion, and when you lift the eyelids, now you can see the movements. So right side under action on depression in adduction and vertical diplopia. Person will have a vertical diplopia. So there will be slightly upward and outward movement whenever you get palsy. So this will be inward, that is upward and medial, unopposed action of superior oblique, unopposed action of superior oblique. Here you can see that this you can move very nicely downwards and outwards, but this you cannot move. So this is left side trochlear palsy. Left side trochlear palsy. And to adjust that, the person will make the head movements, and that will be correcting the axis. So that is called torticollis. So person acquires that typical position. So that suggests that trochlea. You can see here in a normal head position, you can see this eyeball is moved upward and medial. That will be typical squint because of fourth cranial nerve palsy. And to adjust that, they tilt the head so that the axis of both eyeball becomes parallel. As far as sixth cranial nerve palsy, it is very easy. Absence of lateral movement, or we call abduction. Because lateral movement is not there, so there is unopposed action. So person will have a medial squint. So person will have a adductor squint, absence of lateral movement, and diplopia in lateral field. Very simple. So this will be right side abduction palsy. Right side cannot. Person is asked to look medially. This cannot move to the left side. So this side lateral rectus palsy. Here you can see that person is able to move medially. Here this eye cannot move laterally. So this particular is having lateral rectus palsy when you ask the person to look this side. And if this is a position when a person is looking straight, then you can say that left side, this is left side eyeball is centrally positioned, but this eyeball cannot move laterally. So this will be the paralyzed eye, paralyzed lateral rectus palsy. And here same thing. If you ask the person to look in the center and person is not able to move this eyeball laterally, means you have got palsy here. But if this is on looking to the right or looking to the left, means here when the person is asked to the look to the right, means right side lateral rectus should work and left side medial rectus should work, then you will say that this side palsy. Here left side abduction palsy, because you are asking the person to look to the left side. Here again you can see that person, this eyeball is medially. If this is a static position, then here lateral rectus is paralyzed. While if you are asking the person to look to the right, this is moving medially, this is not moving, so this side lateral rectus palsy. So while looking at the gaze, see this is a normal position. Here if you see this eyeball is more medially, that means this side lateral rectus palsy. This is when you are looking at the distant object, and this is binocular movements. So here this will be right side, this will be again right side. So at your leisure time, go through. These are different eyeball movements for left side abduction palsy. Again here you can see that when you are asking to look to this side, this eyeball cannot move, so this side lateral rectus. So left side abduction palsy. So together this will be very peculiar. In third cranial nerve palsy, the affected eye, you will have ptosis, mydriasis, and eyeball will be looking down and out. While in a fourth cranial nerve, the affected eye will be looking upward and medial. While in case of sixth cranial nerve palsy, the eyeball will not be able to turn to the lateral. You will have medial squint. So in a myasthenia gravis, good number of time it is a bilateral ptosis. In case of a Horner syndrome, you will have a partial ptosis. Do remember this. and you will have a retraction in case of exophthalmos, particularly in case of thyrotoxicosis, once in a while in case of a hydrocephalus, also in a retroverbal tumor also you can have a exophthalmos. So look for exophthalmos, anophthalmos. Anophthalmos will be common in Horner syndrome, even in a case of a dehydration, or in case of an extraocular muscle palsy, multiple extraocular muscle palsy, you can have anophthalmos. Horners we have already discussed, we have uploaded that. These are all we call as a York muscle actions. These are all York muscle actions. Then we test for a conjugated movements. This is in detail what are the control of horizontal gaze, vertical gaze. We have got right frontal eye field, all those will be I've already uploaded that particular video on a gaze palsy. You can go through at leisure time. So horizontal gaze center, frontal eye field, then we call medial longitudinal fascicle, then you have got a paramedian pontine reticular formation, PPRF, how exactly the nerve connections are there. I've already discussed all this in that particular chapter. So at present time, this is called internuclear ophthalmoplegia. So I've discussed all those things. At present I'm not discussing this part. You will have a testing also done in a case of a vestibular nucleus testing and Doll's eye movement, and even in caloric test. This is frontal eye movement, eye fields, vertical conjugated gaze, how exactly it is working, what is a saccadic movement, what is a smooth pursuit movement, etc. Upward gaze, downward gaze, all those I will discuss in that chapter. At your leisure time you can go through. So I end my lecture here because it will be very difficult to discuss all those. That will take another half an hour to 1 hour. So I've already uploaded, you can go through in that video. That is gaze palsy, and then even I've uploaded 1.5, 8.5, etc. So at the end of this lecture, thank you very much for taking out time. I know that your time is valuable and I appreciate you for spending some of the time with me. I think this will be very helpful to you in your oral exams as well as in your practical side, and also good number of time questions can be asked in your theory and in your everyday practice also you can come across. So if you like this particular lecture, please don't forget to press button like, subscribe, and you can share with your friends if you feel that it will be helpful to you. See you in next lecture.